Welcome on board QueezyJet Sightseeing Flight QS1 to Rosslyn Chapel. We are the only airline flying from the Quincey Airport, and uniquely among airlines, we alter our course to take in landmarks and features of interest, and thus, and in every other way, endeavor to provide a luxury experience. We regret that meals will not be served on this flight, and there are no toilets. Our hostess, Susan, will be your guide on this tour.
Welcome on board, everyone. In accordance with our regular practice, we are on a slight detour in order to see interesting local features. Passing out of view below is the Quincey Cottage, a listed building of which more later. Below us is Poulton Village, a community of 25 houses with a bowling club, whose green you see here, and just beyond it is the walled garden, an oval 140 yards by 120. Inside it, the path running right to left points within a few degrees of the direction of Rosslyn Chapel, which is almost exactly 1.5 miles away. Shortly we come to Mavis Bank House, which is a Grade A listed building, but is now derelict and in disrepair. However, plans are afoot to restore it for commercial use. In the distance are Arthur's Seat, a volcanic feature in Holyrood Park, Edinburgh, and just this side of the fourth, Quincey Power Station. The body of water closer to us is the Curling Pond, which is over 100 yards long. Owing to the tightness of our schedule, we must now turn away and skirt round the town of Lonehead, home to 7,000 people, to make our way towards Bilston Glen Viaduct. The viaduct was built in 1895 to replace that of 1874, which served the Edinburgh to Lonehead Railway. It crosses Bilston Burn, a tributary of the North Esk. That area has been designated a site of special scientific interest. The bridge is now part of a path that leads to the edge of Rosslyn. On a bike you can reach the chapel from this bridge in 4 minutes. A Tour de France rider could probably do it in more like 2 minutes, at the cost of a few killed dog walkers. Ahead of us is the Dryden Tower, a Category B listed building. The houses in the background are of Bilston, whose population is 1,500. The tower was possibly built about 1850, though there is mention of a monument at the site rather earlier than that. Alas, the description is not clear enough for us to be sure that the reference is to the present structure. The Dryden Tower may have been intended as an attention grabber for Dryden House, which no longer exists. This is an awkward building to reach on foot, and entry to it is prevented by encircling railings, but for us there will be no difficulty about gaining a quick view. However, Captain Quincey will not attempt to enter it. Passing Linghill Farm we begin the last and longest leg of our journey. While on it we have time to say a little more about Mavis Bank House. Built around 1725, The house was badly damaged by fire in 1973. Historic Scotland has provided a grant of £12 million for it to be restored as holiday accommodation. We must hope that the change does not harm the diverse wildlife in the area. The buildings at the right are part of a new housing development at the edge of Rosslyn. We shortly pass R&B nurseries, who produce 500,000 shrubs and trees a year, including the output from their other site in Lasswade. This seems a staggering statistic, well over 1,000 items a day. Presently we pass Dryden Farm. The trees for the most part stand on either side of the North Esk, which you briefly see now, as we continue on our southward course. Just before we turned you may have noticed houses in the distance. They belong to Roswell, another small Midlothian town, in size similar to Bilston. The buildings to the right belong to Slate Barn's caravan site, but straight ahead is our goal, Rosslyn Chapel. It would be nice to stop here for coffee and biscuits, but Captain Quincey tells us that, owing to the tightness of our schedule, this will not be possible. Located inconspicuously amid the trees is Rosslyn Castle, which can be made out with a little difficulty straight ahead. Since we are at the limit of the aircraft's range, we must now turn round and head back. After passing Gorton House, which is a 4-star hotel, we follow the course of the North Esk. While we cruise, there is time for a brief comment about the effect of Dan Brown's book The Vinci Code, in which Rosslyn Chapel features. Before it was published, the chapel had space outside for 2 cars or so. Now they have built a large car park, and make a substantial charge for entry to the building, though parking was still free when I was last there. The book must have been a wonderful windfall for the chapel. Even the owner of a neighboring field got in on things by offering for sale bags of what he called the Vinci horse manure. I promised I would have more to say about the Quincey cottage, which we passed early in the flight. It used to be home to the eminent literary figure Thomas de Quincey, who hobnobbed with the Lake District poets, such as Wordsworth. Named in his honor are De Quincey Road and De Quincey Path in the St. Anne's estate at the edge of Bonnyrigg, not to mention De Quincey Cottage and the fictitious De Quincey Airport, where we are shortly due to land. The topic of literature brings us nicely to our next landmark, Hawthornden Castle, which is run as a writer's retreat. In favorable lighting it looks from the air as if it hangs aloft without support. On a walk from Poulton to Rosslyn it used to be possible to go alongside the river and pass this building, high and inaccessible on the opposite side of the water. Whenever I went this way it always felt as if I was in a fairytale world, and it is easy to imagine that the location and ambience might provide inspiration for creative writers. Sadly, after a landslip the riverside route was closed. The prominent white building in the distance is Lasswade High School, and on the horizon, a little to its left you may just make out the tiny blip that is North Berwick Law, which is a mile south of the town, far away in East Lothian. The mass of houses belong to Bonnyrigg, the nearest forming the St. Anne's estate, which I mentioned a little earlier. Please ensure that seat belts are securely fastened as we shall shortly land at De Quincey Airport, where the weather is sunny and fine, and the temperature 54, which in these newfangled centigrade degrees is 12. If you ever feel gloomy about the passing years, and the increasing number that is your age, convert it to centigrade. 68 becomes 20. It is time for me to say goodbye to you and to hand you back to Captain Quincey.
Thank you. On behalf of Susan and the rest of the crew, I hope you have enjoyed your flight, and we look forward to seeing you again.